It's time now for Originals Only.
Roll on, train, take my baby away. Roll on down the line. Well, I threw her out this morning, I had nothing left to say, but now I'm feeling fine. You know she's cussing and a feuding, just a putting up a fuss. Long time coming, well I'm sure I've had enough. My baby's making me blue. Well, it's over this time, we're through. Well, I packed her bag and left it in the front yard, hoping she'd leave me alone. Well, now where you go, baby, I don't care. Just don't be here when I come home. You know she's cussing and a feuding, just a putting up a fuss. Long time coming, well I'm sure I've had enough. My baby's making me blue. Well, it's over this time, we're through. You know she's cussing and a feuding, just a putting up a fuss. Long time coming, well I'm sure I've had enough. My baby's making me blue. Well, it's over this time, we're through. Well, I walked into the bar room and there she was, making friends left and right. Well, I was so upset that I could not cry. With a glance I just waved goodbye. You know she's cussing and a feuding, just a putting up a fuss. Long time coming, well I'm sure I've had enough. My baby's making me blue. Well, it's over this time, we're through. Well, a friend it seems has come from afar. I'm hoping it takes her away. Well, now baby says she left me, but I beat her to the punch. For a long time I've just had enough. You know she's cussing and a feuding, just a putting up a fuss. Long time coming, well I'm sure I've had enough. My baby's making me blue. Well, it's over this time, we're through. It's over this time, we're through.
The funny thing about how we got started was that it was almost by accident. There was a local jamboree going on at one of the radio stations, and I really didn't intend on playing that night, but I happened to be there, and there was a snowstorm going on, and they weren't sure if a lot of the musicians were going to show up that night, so they asked me to hang around, and I agreed to. As it turned out, all the musicians that were supposed to show up did show up, and John was one of them that did. And the funny thing is that I've worked with John's dad for like 12 or 13 years, and John works with my mom, but in all those years we never actually met. I'd always heard that John was a singer and a player, but I'd never actually heard him play before, and we hadn't met until that night. And at that time I was cutting some demos with a steel player named John Jovan, and I had some of those demos at the radio station with me, and John came into the studio and I played them for him, and he seemed impressed by what we were doing. And that night I got a chance to hear John sing and play, and we got to talking about writing songs, and we seemed to have a lot of the same ideas as to what we wanted to do musically. So we made arrangements and we got together, and after we played once or twice, you could kind of see that something there just clicked, and that's really how it kind of got started.
Every morning she will rise, wipe the sleep out of her eyes. Down the stairs she will go, walk on wooden floors. As the dawn sets in, like her shepherd like a friend. She will tend the flock again in chilly north winds. And the harvest about to start, where she has gone to the orchard, hoping for autumn sun. To the south fly the birds, for winter comes at Allen's apple farm. And the harvest about to start, where she has gone to the orchard, hoping for autumn sun. To the south fly the birds, for winter comes at Allen's apple farm. As she breathes in so deep, smell of apples crisp and sweet, another bushel to take to the loading crate. Like her father did before, and his 50 years or more, she has learned from the best, now put to the test. For the harvest about to start, where she has gone to the orchard, hoping for autumn sun. To the south fly the birds, for winter comes at Allen's apple farm. For winter comes at Allen's apple farm. For winter comes at Allen's apple farm.
You know, talking about influences, it's been really varied over the past few years. When I started out playing, the Beatles were my first major influence that really got me into music. And since then, you know, a lot of the country rock and the folk movement and the bluegrass has been there. And I think the bluegrass goes way back to when I was 8, 9 years old and would go into the bluegrass festival circuits with my parents. They were, you know, avid listeners of that style of music, and at the time I found that pretty hard to listen to, but through the years I think that catches up with you.
My influences have varied over the years, from anywhere from Pink Floyd to Bob Dylan. You know, Bob Dylan in his musical sense and his you know, lyrics have inspired me to kind of reach for that goal. Pink Floyd in their abstract musical sense have inspired me to in a sense go that way, not to that extent though.
People like Queen, the Doobie Brothers, Bachman Turner Overdrive, maybe Steve Miller, Joe Walsh, guys that played a heavy-handed type guitar without going too wild. It wasn't until years later that I started to look at the guys who entered country into more of a rock atmosphere. People like Mike Nesmith, John Fogerty's Blue Ridge Rangers project, Sonny Curtis, and a few others along those lines. And even some of my influences run all the way to the strict country, like Grandpa Jones or something like that.
Moon shone down on a bright clear night. Water did sparkle on the waves, you know they would show no fright. Well, I was thinking back to a bright and sunny day, when knowing down deep in my heart that it would not stay this way. Won't stay this way. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same. It's got its time to change. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same. Remember last summer, well, I was with her then, when I thought this love of ours, girl, it could never end. I remember her hair, well, down her back it would lay, but knowing down deep in my heart that it would not stay this way. Won't stay this way. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same. It's got its time to change. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same. When my heart was broken, well, this I'm sad to state, I remember her last few words as she had nothing left to say. But I know that come one day, this how she built around my heart, you know it will soon melt away. It'll melt away. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same. It's got its time to change. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same. It's got its time to change. Well, nothing'll ever stay the same.
What's bothering you, Murphy?
Drugs, Barney.
Hi. That was Nancy Allen and me. I'm Peter Weller, the guy behind that mask. If you're a kid, please listen for a second. How do you keep away from drugs? They're everywhere, sometimes even at home. But there is one place you can go that is 100% drug-free. No pot, no pills, no crack, no smack, no coke, no exceptions. The Boys and Girls Club. It beats the streets. No kidding. Recording all this.
Posture.
Okay, here we go.
Record. Roll the shoulder. Come on up to my place, big boy, and watch originals only.
I love originals, and that's why I watch originals only.
Grand Junction in the future. That's a tough one. As far as the band in a whole, I think we're going to stick around a while. I think this one's going to work out pretty well. As far as our recordings go, the first album we did, the Burn in the Midnight Oil project, really started off as a group of demos, and we were so pleased with the way they turned out that we decided to release them in a limited number and just see what happens from there. I think in our next production, I'd like to see us expand the sound of the band a little bit. On the first album, John was the guitar player, he played guitar. I was the bass player, I played bass, and our steel player, John Jovan, played steel. And that's not what we really wanted to do when we started the band, because John plays several instruments and I play several instruments. Now that Bill's in the band, Bill plays a few instruments. And we all write, and I think in any future projects, I'd like to see us expand the sound by adding more keyboards, maybe adding some drums, and then having John and I and Bill switch off different guitar and bass parts, because we all have very different styles in what we do. And I think that if we diversify that, then we're really going to open up what Grand Junction is possible to. So if anything, I'd really like to see the band flourish, not only as a band, but as 3 individual musicians. I think that'll be exciting as we move along down the line.
I think in the future, I would like to see Grand Junction doing a little bit more playing, a little bit more exposure. We haven't had a lot of that. We've been working more in the studio. We've been more or less confined and very few gigs. I think that's going to change. We've got our cassette project that we had worked on, and we have some other demos that are kind of being thrown out right now to different people. I'd like to get into a coffee house circuit. I'm very interested in that because I think that's where people will listen to this kind of music. It can be presented well, and I think it'll be appreciated by the listeners. Personally, I want to stay out of the bars and that market because it's more background music, and I'm not looking at our original music being thought of as background music. I think it's something that needs to be listened to. Possibly an opening act. If any of the country acts come around, or folk acts, or any acts from the past, I'd like to somehow get us on a circuit where we're opening for them. I think that would work really well. Not only for us, but I think we'd be a good warm-up band for the acts that are headlining. As far as recording projects, hopefully in the future, hopefully 1993, we'll see a CD and a cassette release from Grand Junction. It'll be a step ahead of the last project. The last project we had worked on was pretty much myself and Mike and our steel player in the first 6 months of the inception of the band. And those were thrown down as demos and later put onto a cassette for sale in a limited number. This next project I'd like to see as a major project. I'd like to see 24-track studio recording if possible, and I'd like to market this as CD format also. You tend to have a lot of trouble getting your music played on radio stations when you only present cassette. CD is a good format, and it is what the music industry has been moving towards. I'd like to have us represented in that nice, clean sound. I think the instruments that we play and the textures that we get from that would be very conducive on CD. I think there'd be a lot of interesting material that we could put on that, and that's something Grand Junction's looking forward to in the future. So if we do play out, I hope to see all of you out there.
Where I'd like to see the band go is in a direction of coffee houses. and a circuit such as that where you know, it is exposure and people are in a more of a listening type of attitude, whereas opposed to bars, they're more or less interested in who they're talking to and who they're trying to talk to. I'd like to see us get a project CD released probably '93 or so, hopefully sooner. Hopefully we can get the ball rolling on that. You know, I'd like to see us do some collaboration, which we're yet to do. You know, all three of us sitting down and putting forth ideas, because right now it's more or less, I have a song that I've written myself, John has a song that he's written himself, and Mike has a song that he's written himself. Sometimes it's John and Mike's collaboration, but I'm yet to enter the picture in that. That's the direction I'd like to see the band head.
Still see the cowboy, silver spurs and white Stetson hats, horses up against the sunset, riding on the prairies and flats. Never cared much for schooling, learned by working with my hands. Lessons my daddy had taught me made me into a man. I'm gonna ride through the country, heading west is where I'm gonna go. Ride through the country, should have left a long time ago. I'm gonna ride through the country, heading west is where I'm gonna go. Ride through the country, should have left a long time ago. Left my job and my time card, now I keep time with the sun. Lessons my dad had taught me made me hide and run. Now I've come to the high road, left the dusty trails in my tracks, dirty streets and cold skyscrapers, left them and I'm never going back. I'm gonna ride through the country, heading west is where I'm gonna go. Ride through the country, should have left a long time ago.